Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. This video is part 4, depending on how you count it, of my playlist about Proverbs 30 verse 4. Now, in order to understand what is meant by wind and water, what is meant by gathering the wind specifically, holding the wind in one's fist, wrapping the water in a cloak, we have to first look to Proverbs, because that's where the scripture is found, and Proverbs is the main central book to understand the other books in the Bible. One of the main mistakes people make when they try to interpret the Bible on a high level is they don't hone in on Proverbs, when they should hone in on Proverbs. So let's look at this thing here. Let's look at Proverbs chapter 1, verse 27. When calamity overtakes you like a storm, when disaster sweeps over you like a whirlwind, when distress and trouble overwhelm you. So now I'm taking scriptures from various chapters that point directly to wind, water, the prostitute, contaminating the waters, what have you, to help you understand Proverbs 30 verse 4. So we see calamity is compared to a storm, right? It overtakes you like a storm. Disaster sweeps over you like a whirlwind. Okay, so the storm is symbolic of calamity, and the whirlwind is symbolic of disaster. So how did I come to this conclusion? Well, in Proverbs chapter 1, verse 27, it says that calamity overtakes you like a storm, and disaster sweeps over you like a whirlwind. And we see the pattern of teaching. Again, write this phrase down. The pattern of teaching shows us that when there's words that are next to symbolic words, right? A symbolic word is maybe water, storms, whirlwind, the cloak. When we see the context of it and what it's getting at, it always connects to these ideas when it's said in a mysterious way, like in Revelation 17 or Revelation 18 or Proverbs 30 verse 4. Okay, so let's go to Proverbs 4. They eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. Now, why is wine connected to water? Because one of the most famous parts of the Bible is Christ as a character in the story, figuratively and symbolically turning water into wine. So there's a process. The fruits of righteousness, for example, the grapes of righteousness, if you will, mixed with water to make wine, right? And the whole process of making wine to make wine. So gathering up the wind in one's hands, holding the wind in one's fists, okay, being connected to the whirlwind, right? The whirlwind, and the whirlwind often includes water, and wrapping the waters in a cloak are connected to the idea of wine, which in Proverbs 4 we see is connected to violence, right? The wine stands for the blood that was shed, by the wicked killing the righteous, right? She's drunk off the blood of the saints. And it's a process of making her intoxicated off the blood of the saints, which brings about God's wrath. So we see that Proverbs 4 connects to Proverbs 30 verse 4, where it says that the Son of God with God together in the Spirit of God, through the Spirit of God, the Son of God being connected to God, wraps up the waters in a cloak, gathers the water in a cloak, conceals something, conceals the Spirit of God in the processes that you're seeing. And the cloak in Isaiah represents a cloak of zeal, a cloak of passion for God, and the cloak can represent clouds. The clouds are the passionate martial arts strikes of God. Cloud burst, thunderstorm, and hail, a collection of God's righteousness, bringing about a driving rain, a thudding rain, the floodgates, the gate. I am the gate. Proverbs 5, verse 15. Drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. Should your springs overflow in the streets, your streams of water in the public squares? Let them be yours alone, never to be shared with strangers. May your fountains be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. A loving doe, a graceful deer, may her breast satisfy you always. May you ever be intoxicated with her love? Why, my son, be intoxicated with another man's wife? Why embrace the bosom of a wayward woman? So it's saying, you see how the water is connected to the idea of a righteous woman, the pure water of God, holy water, and there's the polluted water of the prostitute. So it's saying, don't mess with the polluted spirit and ways and paths and fruits and martial arts and so on and so forth of the prostitute, but instead find your place in the divine order and let God's Spirit marshal you. Obey God through me so that you do not commit adultery and find yourself on the side of the false idols, the kings of the world, the prostitute, the cities and nations of the world that prostitute themselves to false ideas, what have you. So don't let your pure water spill into the city streets where all kinds of idolaters roam, and the streets are dirty and so on and so forth, so they become polluted waters if you do that. In other words, don't accept the path of the snake in the garden and things of that nature. Don't follow Jezebel, don't follow Cain, don't follow Judas and Herod and Caiaphas and Caesar and so on and so forth. So Proverbs 6, okay, in Proverbs 6 and verse 17, it talks about hands that shed innocent blood. Again, it connects the wine and the violence and the blood. In verse 26, it says, for a prostitute can be had for a loaf of bread, but another man's wife preys on your very life. Can a man scoop fire into his lap without his clothes being burned? Can a man walk on hot coals without his feet being scorched? So the fire burns him because there's no water to put it out, right? Or the water's not being used effectively one way or another. And the person was dumb enough to set himself on fire, especially without water to put it out in time. There's things like that that are being alluded to. So it says that a prostitute can be had for a loaf of bread. It's not saying that you should go to a prostitute, but it's saying, to what degree are you making that mistake? Are you just kind of making a mistake? Or are you trying to cheat the righteous out of the way, the truth, and the life? So it's saying to, like the Pharisees, it's saying, why lie about Jesus? You can be an idiot without lying about Jesus. You can be an adulterous dog without lying about Jesus and accept that degree of punishment. Why block people from Christ? Matthew 23, right? They shut the door of heaven in people's faces and make them twice the child of hell that they are. Why become a Satanist and try to keep people from their suitable helper and try to keep people from the gate and so on and so forth? That's what it's getting at. Okay. Proverbs. Oh, wait. I didn't. Wait, so it was the last verse, verse 29. For he who sleeps with another man's wife will not go unpunished. See, no one who touches her will go unpunished. So I'm reading this from my notes here. So is he who sleeps with another man's wife. No one who touches her will go unpunished. So it's saying that there's going to be punishment. Now the punishment has to fit the crime. Like Solomon with the two women. What did he decide to do and why? The parables of the two sons. One said that they were going to go to the garden and didn't, and one said that they wouldn't go and did. So they're judging based on justice, right? Universal justice. John 7 verse, I believe it's 24, says stop judging by mere appearances, instead judge correctly. Don't judge by what you think the Bible is saying, judge correctly with a universal scale, the golden rule, the greatest commandment. Luke 12:57, why don't you judge for yourselves what is right? So the punishment is that they're sealed in hell and they go to hell. See the video I made, maybe 2 videos before this? I think it was Proverbs 17, where it says whoever pays back, people doing good with evil, evil will never leave their house. So the door to heaven is, the gate to heaven is shut permanently. It's sealed, 7 seals. They're sealed, and evil never leaves the spiritual atmosphere, the souls, the spirits of the inhabitants of the earth. Those who didn't obey God through me, and no one should reproduce no matter what. That's one of the reasons why. So Proverbs 7, verse 18. Come, let's drink deeply of love until morning. Let's enjoy ourselves until morning. So it's this prostitute saying to this guy that they want to drink deeply of pagan love until morning. Notice the word being used is drink, which refers to the water and the wine. You should see the pattern of teaching right now. Again, you should have written down the phrase, the pattern of teaching. Proverbs 8, verse 24. Okay, now let's talk about Proverbs 7 real quickly. I'm running out of time here, but let's go through this really quickly. So the water, right, said, who's wrapped up the waters in a cloak? Who holds the wind in his fist, right? Who's gathered up the wind in his hands? So it's this righteous person who's mad about the sexual immorality of society, that they're lying about God, they're cheating the top martial artist ever possible out of his right to lead, and he's getting very angry, right? And he's gathering up the wind of the fury of God, the whirlwind of God, right? Proverbs 1, calamity overtakes them like a storm. Disaster sweeps over them like a whirlwind. So it's this anger of God, the Lord's wrath, right? The water's being turned into the wine of God's wrath because they're drunk on the blood of the saints. No, Proverbs 8 sheds more light on it. Verse 24. So wisdom is saying it was there before there was even water. God used wisdom to determine what the water should be and which water's which. When there were no watery depths, I was there. When there was no watery depth, I was given birth. When there were no springs overflowing with water. Verse 28. When he established the clouds above and fixed the fountains of the deep. When he gave the sea its boundaries, again the mark and the boundaries, so the waters would not overstep his command. When he marked out the foundations of the earth. So you have the boundaries and the mark, again that pattern of teaching. So the mark refers to the boundaries of God, right? What is universally right and wrong. So why don't you judge for yourselves what is right? Romans 1, it says, everyone knew the invisible qualities of God the whole time. They know the top martial artist ever possible is above everyone else. They know right is right and wrong is wrong. They know they're not supposed to cheat me. They know they're not supposed to have shallow relationships. They're not supposed to put their shallow families before God, what have you. So wisdom was there. There's wisdom of God's wisdom helped determine, or was the determinant in determining what the rules are. The rules are there for a reason. And the design is sound. Just because people are often not smart enough to understand the design doesn't mean the design isn't sound. So we see that in these first 8 chapters, we see that it connects to Proverbs 30 verse 4. So to understand it, you can't have just some kind of shallow understanding of it and say, hey, this is what it must mean. Or you think you get saved by faith. No, the whole Bible is about people not being saved because they didn't have the true faith, keyword true, to be in the divine order and to do the works of God. Instead, they're prostituting themselves to other idols. Jeremiah, Hosea, Isaiah, you name it. Psalms. It's about a bunch of idolaters making the world into hell and the righteous facing them. Judges, Exodus, even Genesis. And so there's that pure water. In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth and the pure waters. And man went astray and started contaminating the earth with his idolatry until the earth was finally transformed into hell. We see in Isaiah chapter 65 and 66 where they're following the false idols into hell instead of obeying God and going to heaven.